Welcome back to Hidden Power. This is a Pokemon podcast. Today we're going to be discussing everything about the epilogue for the DLC for Scarlet and Violet, including the very mysterious Pokemon. My name is DustyGogoat, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Birdkeeper Toby, back from the dead, just like the mythical Pokemon Pecharunt.
We've had all this stuff of Pokemon being brought back and revived, like the Loyal 3 from Pecharunt's power. And here I am for the epilogue of Birdkeeper Toby. Thank you so much for having me. This is one of those... I'm just to break the illusion for people right away. We're recording this before New Year's, before my final video's even gone live. So because there's so much information we already know, but I'm not going to get to talk about it because I'm leaving YouTube for a while, and people have constantly said, "Oh, will you come back to talk about stuff on the podcast from time to time?" So consider this fulfillment of that, because I would hate to leave right before the final DLC is really complete, but I still had to end at the end of the year. So This is the epilogue podcast. Thank you for having me, Dusty, and giving me a opportunity to kind of talk about this publicly.
So, I mean, right off the bat, I have not actually watched through or played through the epilogue. I think listeners will be watching and listening to this when they have already had the opportunity to play it for themselves, when this is already out. But I have not, for the time recording this, I have not played it. I think you have. I've not played it, but I've seen it. I've seen it on YouTube before the DMCA strikes got everyone. I had seen the entirety of the playthrough, so I know its kind of contents, which obviously we can talk about here. But I'm
can't upload until
I'm really excited
it's public.
To hear what you have to say about all of this. This is going to be fun. I'm looking at it right now. I've seen Pecharunt. I know what it is. It's the subjugation Pokemon. I love the typing. Poison, Ghost. I like how it looks. I like how it's two different forms. And I like that this Pokemon has been teased, right? Not only by leakers and theorized by individuals in the community, but also by the games themselves. I really have been enjoying how they've just kind of... It reminds me of when I used to play Emerald version, right? And you would, there was that white rock, right? There was you see all these... there's white rocks with Jirachi. There's all of these meteorites relating to Deoxys, and you hear these playground rumors, right? This is feeling like that, so I like this Pokemon a lot. There's been hints for what and how this is going to play a part in the story. So what have you seen so far?
I was just gonna say it's kind of I feel like we've already talked about Pecharunt calling it the Peach Pokemon or Momotaro already, pre this point, because it was in the Kitakami thing. So we saw an image of it in the part 1 of the Indigo Hidden Treasure of Area Zero in the corner of the flashback story for Ogerpon. And then we also saw this little pink creature that of the same shape as Peachy's stall. And obviously you've already said to me ahead of time that I can tell you. So turns out, not a plush. That actually is Pecharunt. That's the
actual Pokemon?
Literally sitting there in the game. Way. Which is such a nice feature.
I totally thought it was a plushie.
No, it really is the actual Pokemon, it seems, just asleep there. And I guess when it says it's Dusty, perhaps it's in the way that a gone-off peach is... I'm just assuming this is gone-off fruit is kind of molded. Yeah. Maybe it's kind of like that because it is gone-off fruit. It's a peach or a Pecha berry that's got a ghost inside. So it's got in the pit, so it's gone off.
Which I gotta say, I love the fact that they're, they could have very easily called this Pecharunt, right? They could have made a reference to, a non-canon, out-of-universe fruit. I like how they kept it. I like how they kept it in universe. I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the way you access it is via a special Pecha berry item. And then Pecha also works with petulant, it's a kind of childish. It's it's a petulant runt, but it's a Pecha berry. And interesting because obviously we've just had Applin and all of the Applin things. But this is our first kind of canonical look at what happens if a Pokemon fruit becomes a Pokemon, which I think is really interesting. So the way the DLC kind of works from what I've witnessed is it's about an hour's worth of gameplay that features you returning to the land of Kitakami with Arven, Penny, and Nimona to meet up with Carmine and Kieran, and across the Kitakami area, everyone's been eating this purple mochi that's been kind of making them behave strangely. They're dancing, they act possessed, and of course the Pokemon behind it is Pecharunt. It doesn't seem to have much of a reason for this, but every time someone eats that mochi, which happens for the most ridiculous of reasons, everyone's eating this mochi, you have to engage in a number of difficult battles with them, get to Pecharunt, and then Pecharunt causes them to dance and say, mochi, mochi, mochi. And that's pretty much the whole thing. And then you just catch Pecharunt.
It's like a silly version of a horror story. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like it's kind of like a little bit more expanded on than perhaps past mythical events. Like I would say it's akin to like the Darkrai event or the Victini event, which is super, super cool. Yeah. At the same time, it's expanded on in a way that is effectively a dialogue corridor and some battles. And I think in terms of like actual battles and actual real content that isn't just dialogue, you could probably cut it down to like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, but
all right.
That's kind of my understanding.
This isn't DLC.
Yeah, it's definitely not DLC. It's definitely just like a little attachment, kind of like this, podcast is to me on YouTube.
Yes.
So that's what I've seen, and it honestly not only was not worth making a video at the time, but also the DMCA strikes kind of caught a lot of people off guard because we've not had events like this since Generation 4, at which time people weren't really YouTubing, which is interesting. I mean, what do you make of it in terms of like relation to older events? Because I know off podcast you were kind of mentioning about like how it reminded you of like Gen 3.
Yeah, I was so I mean, we had one podcast get taken down about a week after it had already been out. I had a podcast on my channel that got taken down again because I flashed it on I flashed Pecharunt on screen for about 5 minutes, maybe somewhere under 5 minutes. And I think I was really aggravated, not because the videos were taken down, but because I was like, if you don't want people to look at this, why leave it in the game? We're in an era now where you can literally...
Yeah.
I mean, they can just add anything through download. People bought... There are so many people, I don't know what the number is, but there's so many copies of Indigo Disc. People bought Indigo Disc or a physical version that was supposed to have both DLCs, but they really only had one of the DLCs. Right? Like people bought the DLC without actually buying the DLC physically, and then just downloaded the entire Indigo Disc DLC. I don't know why Pecharunt wasn't just also something that was downloadable. And you're right. This brings me back to Generation 6, right? When there was a lot of mystery Pokemon. Magearna, I think it was... Maybe not Magearna. Is Magearna Gen 6 or 7?
Yeah, Magearna is Gen 7, technically.
But in X and Y, there was Volcanion. There was the Eternal Flower Floette. There was, I think... Hoopa and Hoopa... Not Hoopa Unbound, but Hoopa was in the code as well.
Diancie,
I guess, actually, even in Gen 7, there's a lot of... I guess all the 3DS games. There was
Mega Latias and Latios,
yeah. And I don't know. For me, as a viewer on YouTube, I loved it. Right, it was so cool to find these like hidden Pokemon that the Pokemon Company hadn't really discussed, and then they were eventually just given to us, which is maybe what you are trying to cue this conversation into. But like, we eventually got access to Volcanion and Hoopa, really just as a mystery gift event where we just walked into the Pokemon Center and they just gave us the Pokemon. And the main problem there that I think fans collectively have decided is that that's kind of boring. And it's like, these Pokemon obviously have stories and inspirations behind their designs. Why are we not playing something in order to access these Pokemon and then also see their personality and their intentions fully fleshed out? Pecharunt, it seems like we're getting a full-on epilogue, which is cool.
Yeah, and seems deserving of a mythical Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is interesting. So you had content taken down. I also got hit on an Easter eggs video with my kind of secret final Easter egg being there's this. Turns out there's this Pecharunt Pokemon, this DLC that's extra content that's in the game, and it was interesting because based on watching like Pokemon X and Y content when it came out and seeing like the AZ Flower Floette and the Mega Latios and Latias and X and Y and that kind of thing, my assumption was this is fair game. And in fact, there was a brief window of time where the content was available on like Cerebi. Like I'd seen the image of the Pokemon on Cerebi, and that for me is my quota of it's probably fine then. And then actually by the time my video was out, Joe Cerebi had taken it down. It was gone.
Yes.
And
that was the other huge thing for me. The fact that he had it on his website, I'm like, it's good. We're good.
And I want to be clear, that's not a fault of Joe's.
No.
That's Cerebi working with the information they have based on past experiences, right? And it was so only diligent. After that the DMCA strike started happening. And what's really weird about that is we already knew what the Pokemon looked like because the peach is in the thing. So there's all of this artwork of like what the Pokemon looks like. And I could not work out for the life of me what the line was in terms of, am I allowed to now put a video out with Pecharunt in its like closed form? Art. Yeah, or am I allowed to put out fan art? Or is that now, like, it was fine post Kitakame DLC, but not fine post Indigo Disc DLC? Like, is there a thing, or is it only just screenshots and videos? So it was kind of hard to gauge, but I guess we're just kind of learning as a community what the Pokemon company would expect from us for the sake of keeping it secret.
So that was unlocked because of the Indigo Disc? Was that data part of the Indigo Disc download? It must have been, right?
Yeah.
Then that makes no sense. It's like, why?
Yeah,
we're going to talk about it. Like the strategy
already
should
there.
Be put it into the game so we talk about it, and then there's like a big, that's excitement, that's conversation. That should be their intention. I don't know. But I
assumed
that
they would release it on Pokemon Day as well. I'm finding this weird mid-January date super strange to me. Like, I don't know if it's just something small to tide us over.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know why you wouldn't at that point just save it for Pokemon Day. Maybe they're like, they were going to, but now they feel that the buzz would be killed because people are already talking about it.
Yeah.
I don't really know, like, who can get in the head of the Pokemon company at this point, but it was just interesting. And I'm not annoyed at the Pokemon company. At the end of the day, it is their intellectual kind of property. What I do wish is that when they hit my video, I don't know how they did it for yours, but rather than just hitting the 5 seconds that had a screenshot on screen, rather than just hitting the 5 seconds, they hit like half the video. So my 15 Easter eggs video has become a 7 Easter eggs video because I opted to cut the content out as opposed to like re-uploading or challenging it.
I think we mentioned it in the middle of our podcast and then like maybe vaguely talked about it throughout. So they flagged an hour of the podcast just right in the middle of it. So I just took it's fine. I took it down. I re-uploaded it. We ended up getting the same amount of views. I wonder if it could have like skyrocketed though, because I thought our discussion was like really on the nose, and also that was like a reveal. That was like a reaction for me.
It's just interesting because when this content was more common, era of Gen 3 and 4 particularly, YouTube and YouTubers and PokeTubers were not like a thing. Like in Gen 4, I think there was maybe Mariland, and like that. I don't even know if there was anyone else. And so like people were discussing these things on YouTube, but the Pokemon company wasn't. They didn't have. I don't know how active their policies were on policing something on YouTube, like this on YouTube.
Yeah.
And this is really, and even X and Y was like a little early for that. But like now they've got a pretty integrated system, I think, when it comes to keeping an eye on YouTube and social media and the way they approach their policies. And I think actually Nintendo had a policy update recently.
With Pokemon creators.
Right. And that just wasn't happening the last time this type of content was in the code. So like, it seemed obvious that if you were with the Indigo Disc Part 2, that code was not in the game, like the Hidden Treasure of Area 0, that if you somehow had that content and posted it early, that would be like committing a crime. That would be like you've stolen that content.
Yeah.
But with this, the stuff it's there. It's just unlocked by a little item, which of course people worked out within, like 2 days how to put that item in.
Yeah.
And obviously like that's against like Pokemon's terms of service, but it's not, I guess. I don't know. I haven't read them. But I don't know that anyone... in retrospect, you could kind of see it either way. Like, I don't blame them. It's their IP. If they want people to have a certain kind of experience, I get that. But I agree with you. Like, I think the better solution, honestly, is... Okay, well then just don't put it in the game. Have it as a patch, Like, have it as an update. You can do that. You're Pokemon.
Because in Generation 8, there was a lot of... Maybe not a lot, but there were some mythical Pokemon that were added in just as kind of like a shadow drop event, which maybe the event wasn't that interesting because it was just a gift that you could get. But what is it called? Zarude, I think it was.
Zarude, yeah.
I mean, that didn't exist, and then all of a sudden it existed, right? I don't know. I really don't know what the intention was, because like earlier you said you don't fault Game Freak and the Pokemon Company. Maybe you're not mad at them. I'm not mad at them either.
Communication would have been nice as to like.
You could be frustrated because it doesn't make sense. Game Freak does a lot of things out of order, and like I feel like the average Pokemon fan likes order and likes to follow the patterns, right? And it definitely can be a little aggravating to be like, why did you do this if you're going to punish us?
Sure. Because, like, for example, they also cut the part of the video that featured a shiny Terapagos. Now, Terapagos is shiny locked in the DLC, and I have no way of knowing whether showing the image of the shiny Terapagos was a reason or whether that was just incidental.
It could have been. That's probably why we lost. They flagged an hour of our podcast.
I just can't know. You can't know. We can't work with that information in a meaningful kind of way. Fine, it is what it is. And, like, I've got no dog in this race right now anyway. Like, I'm not even uploading, so it doesn't about? Totally irrelevant to me. But for future creators going forward, I think this is going to act as a little bit of a learning point for, so actually you really do have to be quite careful if you're going to post about potential leaks, or certainly if you're going to post about content that's in the game but unreleased, maybe it's better not to touch it. And that includes if there's like a secret form or mythical Pokemon. Like, I think now if I saw AZ's Floette in Pokemon X and Y, I just wouldn't touch it. Whereas in the past I think that would have been fine, but now I just would be like, nope, not gonna go near that.
I'll wait.
Don't need to see that content, don't need to post that content, because you will get possibly a copyright claim or strike.
Interesting, man. Yeah. It's a little, I don't know. There's a constant learning curve.
Sure.
And it's kind of weird also. I mean, this is probably a huge other conversation, but we are actually what feels like possibly the end. I'm assuming it's the end of not Generation 9, but the Scarlet and Violet story.
Possibly.
Maybe just off the cuff. Like, I mean, did you like the ending of the Indigo Disc?
Yeah, I did. I feel like, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head, there were certain lore-based things that maybe. Is there anything? No, actually, do you know what? I really did quite enjoy it. Like, in retrospect, it was a good DLC. If I wasn't working it like a maniac over the last 2 weeks, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more, and that's fine. But that's
you'll have time now.
Kind of.
Maybe you're playing it right now.
Maybe I'll go back to it now. For me, there is a frustration that I have to. The expectation is probably going to be in the future that to get that quality of gameplay, I have to wait until the second DLC of any given game. It's going to really put me off. I don't want to have to play through a bunch of game I don't like to get to the bit of game I do like. I would rather just have the whole game be that, or to challenge me in that kind of way. But I thought it was great. I thought it was, one of the better Pokemon experiences. It's a shame that it's still happening in Scarlet and Violet. But at that point, I'm rambling, and that is a whole other podcast. Did you like it?
I think I did like it. I think I was I was definitely underwhelmed by Terapagos. I didn't like its base form. I like its I think it's called Terastal form. I do like the Terastal form. I really don't like its like final ultra form, whatever we're calling that, terastalization form. That was really underwhelming, and it's not like bad. It's just like, okay, this doesn't feel that grand or imposing. But what I did like is that they actually did keep the mystery of Paradox Pokemon a little bit. I guess it's up for interpretation. I understand Terapagos to be a sort of philosopher's stone, something that could essentially grant wishes or grant desires. And then you also have, but there actually is time travel shenanigans, right? And there is time travel paradox.
Yeah, they answered it in a way that I think pretty perfectly says, and people will adamantly disagree because I think they see only their answer. But I actually think the way they've handled everything is they're effectively saying, if you think it's a dream thing, it's a dream thing. If you think it's a time travel thing, it's a time travel thing. If you think it's a multiverse thing, it's a multiverse thing. And depending on which threads you pull at, they all kind of make sense in different ways, or a combination of. So, for me, I read them pretty typically as just like, they're just alternate timelines where Pokemon become cyborgs or Pokemon are particularly savage, and they're from different points in those timelines. They're kind of like Ultra Beasts, but they're from Earth. They're from, and that's kind of how I see them. But if I've seen Kayla's Capsules video on like the dream theory and how that kind of ties in, and yeah, I see that too. Like, it makes sense. It
is really cool because, Ultra Beast seemed like so mind-blowing and random and out of pocket for Game Freak. Paradox Pokemon seem just as ridiculous, but kind of in the same line. I would have to do some like Wikipedia research on and look at a list of like general like monster genres, or I don't even know what the term would be. But I'm sure Game Freak is looking at that Wikipedia list being like, what kind of sci-fi thing could we pull from?
Have we not done next?
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see. I think they're going to do, and this is my prediction. I think they're going to do giants. I think giants, like canonical like beings that are like pre-Pokemon. Yeah. From before Arceus even existed. Like other creatures, I think are going to be kind of the way they're going to go eventually.
Yeah, and Ultra Beast kind of had a similar effect that would have, right? The implication is that like everything that we know about the Pokemon universe, all of the Pokemon and characters and battles, the legendary Pokemon are pretty minuscule, right, in comparison to the greater powers of the wider universe.
Cosmos,
the cosmos. Yeah, it's fascinating. I think it'd be really cool to see giants, legendary giants.
I think we're gonna get something like that, like elemental creatures.
Yeah. Another thing.
So
go on. Maybe we can keep it on track. So the biggest thing about Pecharunt, and again, I have not played this. You have played, or you have seen. You've seen this.
I want to be clear. You keep correcting yourself, and you're being like, oh, you've played or
seen. I don't want to get you in trouble, but you've already.
You're gonna get me in trouble. I really genuinely haven't played it.
Yes, you haven't played it.
I would say at this point, I've got no dog in the race. I'm not worried about upsetting Nintendo. I'm done. I'm done with both. This is the epilogue. But like, really, I saw it because I think, did you see like Tyranitar Tube like uploaded like part of the first half, then like very quickly it was gone, and like there were a lot of YouTubers doing that. So I just watched it and skimmed through it on like 2 times speed.
That. I should have done that. I didn't actually watch all the way through it. I saw it. I clicked.
But I really haven't played it.
So what I'm really curious about is, what is the relationship and how great is it between Pecharunt, the Loyal 3, and also is Pecharunt actually like influencing the personality and the character development of Kieran? Is that really what is going on?
So, from my understanding, no. It is not, which is super weird.
That's actually better, though. I like that better, because that actually puts a lot of the agency back into Kieran's camp, which makes the story more impactful.
Because in the DLC, in the Indigo Disc, Drayton says he's, he calls him Peachy,
acting weird.
Like he's literally talking about like not being told what to do, right? Yeah. Like not being controlled, and then Drayton's like, it's just Peachy, and you're like, okay, so the Peach is controlling what he's doing, okay, and it's framed as if he is possessed, so I don't really understand why that's not the case. Maybe he had a little bit of Mochi in his system. I'm not really sure, but it doesn't appear to be the case. And then as for its connection to Loyal 3, only really hinted at, like in the Pokédex screen, I think the Loyal 3 are in the background, and obviously in its shape, like it clearly is connected to the Loyal 3, but nothing is, I don't think, I might be wrong about this because I was again watching it on 2 times speed, I don't think anything was explicitly stated about their relationship, although you battle Pecharunt at the shrine, with the Loyal 3.
You do battle it at the
previously.
Shrine?
Yeah, that's where you battle it and catch it, yeah, so,
well,
cool.
I'm on Bulbapedia.
So yeah, that's it.
I am on Bulbapedia, and I know this isn't a good source, but it does say that Pecharunt is the trio master of the Loyal 3. It is associated with Ogerpon. That is what is stated. I don't know how that is, if that's just a fan edit.
And then what's really even more interesting is that it had nothing to do, it seems, with Terrapagos. And there's that like tree that's down in the bottom of Area 0 that everyone was like, it's the Glamora tree, and it's like a cursed Glamora.
Dude, I loved that theory so much.
It seems to have nothing to do with Glamora.
Yeah, I don't even know who said it or where that derived from. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's super strange.
So for listeners, the idea was that like Glamora is the flower, And then what comes after a flower is a fruit, which is Pecharunt. I don't know. That's so silly.
So I'm not really sure what's going on there.
It also reminds me of the Tapus. Doesn't it remind you of the Tapus a little bit? It's like this little
in the way that it kind of opens up and closes. Yeah.
It's nice.
Interesting. So, okay, I guess, I hate to say it, but this podcast is pretty much already longer than the substantial content of this thing, which is fine. But there really is, like, we have just spoken about everything, which is why I didn't make a video on it. I mean, and obviously not wanting it to get taken down. But I know we sort of thought that we could use this as an opportunity to talk about the upcoming Pokemon Day, which as of this podcast is only a month and a half away. And for that, I will not be around. So this is my kind of only opportunity to talk about it. And I wanted to make sure we got in some time for that.
Yeah. All right. So let's do this. Let me tell you really quickly. All right. I'm going to tell you what my general timeline overview is for the next, pretty much leading into Generation 10. I'm going to tell you what that is.
Yeah, good shout.
I'm going to tell you what that is, but the reason why I'm actually not going to make a video about this right now is because depending on whatever we learn in February, like the whole thing is just going to shatter. And I was really confident we were going to get Johto, and then the leaker said, okay, we're getting Unova content. And I was so certain until I played the Blueberry Academy, the Indigo Disc, and I realized that the Indigo Disc is a love letter to Unova.
It is the Unova content.
Yeah, suggesting to me that there is no more Unova content, in which case I have no idea what is going to happen, okay? So let me tell you my top level timeline prediction, and then I'm going to tell you all of the possible games that we could see in 2024. We're going to get one of them. We don't know what it's going to be. We're going to get one of these games, but let me tell. So here
bring it. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So this is how I think it's going to go. Right. All right. We got Scarlet and Violet in 2022. In 2023, we got the Teal Mask, which was great. Then we just got the Blueberry Academy. I think at the beginning of 2024, after Pokemon Day, the Switch 2 is going to release. However, the game that we get in 2024, the Pokemon game at Holiday 2024, I do not know what it's going to be, but it definitely will not be for the Switch 2, whatever the Switch successor is going to be. It's going to be
I'm on the same page as you currently. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So the initial prediction that I had was that we're going to get some sort of Unova remake, right? That can get real shaky. It could be a faithful remake, right? I'm gonna say with some shaky confidence that we're going to get some sort of Unova remake. It's going to be a BDSP to Legends thing again. So in the holiday, we're going to get a Unova remake. It's going to be faithful of some sort, right? And then in spring of 2025, we're going to get some sort of Paradox Unova, right, game. What that would be essentially, it's not a Legends game, but it kind of fits that same role. It's essentially an alternate reality to Black 2, White 2, right? We're going to get Black and White remakes, and then we're going to get another Unova game that is not a third sequel, right? It's not a remake of Gen 2. It's not a Black and White 3, but it's actually just a different reality of a game. And I'll tell you this, Toby, I think that's what we already get. I think Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee could be seen as a Paradox Unova a Paradox Kanto game, right? It's an alternate reality. I think Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire could be a Paradox Hoenn game. It's an alternate reality, right?
Well, they literally are, yeah.
So Paradox Unova was a specific term that the Riddler, who is starting, honestly, in my mind, starting to get on shaky ground with some of his claims. That's a separate conversation.
Okay.
But I'm really confident. I really want a Unova game, and I would love to play a Paradox Unova game. We've both made really cool content predicting what that could look like, but that's what I would really want. And then everything kind of breaks from here, because the truth is we could get a Johto game, right? That we might have already received all of our Unova content, and then what we're actually going to get in 2024 is a Johto game. I've been also talking to my friend Kuro Blitz, who's starting to convince me that we could even see a Kalos remake, right? What if Game Freak says screw Johto,
No.
screw Unova,
No.
right? Or what if we get a sequel game to Paldea, right? What I'm trying to say is we don't really know what's going to happen, right? We don't know what's going to happen. I have literally no confidence of what's going to happen in 2024. What do you think?
I mean, I think at that point it's kind of like, well, what if we get Gen 10 in like 2024? I just think it's far too out there. Did you see the Riddler tweet, the one about the four region maps?
Sure, yeah.
So again, it's Riddler coup territory, and it's leaker potential stuff, and it's you got to take it all with a grain of salt. But the 4 maps he posted were Unova, Paldea, Kanto, and Johto. I think with the words 2024 was the thing. Yeah. So here's my thing: the way Paldea is explained is already there's Pecharunt stuff. So that's happened now. That's Paldea done. However, if there is a Switch 2, and I'm not saying they are going to do this, there is every chance that they try and sell us Scarlet and Violet, the complete thing again, on like upper hardware to make up for the quality issues. I wouldn't put it past them trying and just experimenting and seeing how that would do. I could almost on a new console. I could see that.
Okay.
However, I wouldn't bet on that. So the way we explain the other 3 maps, Unova, it could just be that it was the Indigo Disc, and that's what that was. Yep. And so I think it's far too soon that we see a game actually set in Unova. Personally, we just had games set in Sinnoh a couple of years ago. It is way, way, way too soon to see a game set in Unova. But the DLC kind of serves that purpose.
Yeah, continue.
However, Q's tweet did stipulate 2024. Grain of salt, one way or the other. Now, Kanto and Johto, well, hang on, what, are we getting 2 other games? Well, no. We know that Johto famously has Kanto as part of its games so far. So I think that lends itself to a BDS, Heart Gold Soul Silver Ilka-style remake, or a Legends game that kind of is, much as Sinnoh is set in Hisui for the Legends game, it's set in a time like where the, the Tojo region, where it's like half Kanto, half Johto, and they're kind of as one, because at that point you're not creating like an open world game that's bigger than Scarlet and Violet. You're just creating a game like Legends Arceus that has like maybe instead of 5 open areas it has 8 or 10, and that's obviously that's more work, but that's still smaller than Scarlet and Violet, I would have thought. And you can reuse a lot of the assets from Legends Arceus for the same game because they are set literally in the same kind of Pokemon country with a similar aesthetic. And what that allows you to do as a Pokemon company is to keep working on Generation 10 on the new hardware and put most of your time and energy into that by recycling some content. So I think next year, my guess is that Pokemon Day announces some kind of Johto game, either a Ilka style game or a Legends game or both. Probably one or the other, I would have thought. And if we are to see Unova, that I think is most likely to come in the form of an Ilka game, I would have thought, of either Black and White or Black and White 2.
Yeah.
I also think it's possible that if I'm being too wild, if you don't like what I'm saying here about a Legends Johto game, that we could see the Virtual Console Kanto and Johto games make their appearance finally on Switch Online. That's another way they could do it. Sure. In which case, if that does happen, then yes, I think maybe then we could get a Legends Unova game, but I still think it's too soon. And I think all of this kind of covers the November to sort of February period of 2024 into 2025. And then the announcement, probably in February of 2025, of 2026's, even if it's like Pokemon Day 2026, 30th anniversary Generation 10. Now, that would push it back from its normal holiday release.
Okay.
However, it is the 30th anniversary. They might do things a little bit differently. But at that point, I'm getting very far out there, very speculative. February. I think we're gonna all of this could be smashed.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be able to have a much more concrete prediction after we find out whatever the next game is.
Yeah.
I think the Blueberry Academy really threw us for a loop, being so similar to Unova. I will say, Toby, I've kind of flip-flopped, but I'm pretty confident that I think we're still gonna get Generation 10 at that 3-year mark. I think we're gonna get Generation 10.
You think we're gonna get it in 2025 as opposed to 30th anniversary.
I agree. I think when we spoke earlier in the year, I thought it was kind of a novel idea. Like, okay, that fits perfectly. Celebrate the 30th anniversary with with a new generation. But I think if they keep going and make Generation 10, they put it out 3 years, 3 years after Generation 9, just like they always do. I think that opens up the possibilities for the 30th anniversary in 2026 to be a celebration of Pokemon as a whole, right? Not the new thing, but instead they can release...
It depends what they value more, whether they value a November release for the sake of holiday sales, which I won't, deny is probably huge and a huge factor, or whether they value hitting the 30th anniversary date to create a certain amount of buzz. Now, actually, releasing in 2025, the 30th anniversary, might make sense if you do it in November, because then you get a second day in 2026 where you get to do the 30th anniversary and you can sell something else. Exactly. So actually, I think from that point of view, I don't disagree. Maybe it is 2025 we get that.
And if we do get that new Switch successor, if we get that in maybe like 6 months from now, if we get that in 2024,
be the launch for that. It would work for that.
They kind of get this 1-2 punch, and then I think 2026 could the 30th anniversary could be a great time for them to actually give us those Gens 1 to 3 ports on the NSO or whatever they want to call that. And then this is the fun part, right, where they go, okay, 2026 is basically going to be a celebration of Kanto, and then we get a new Kanto game, which actually we're kind of due at that point. Like 2 years from now, we're actually due for another Kanto game, which could include Johto game, right?
It could. I could see them doing something like that, and my reasoning for that is that Pokemon recognize that selling red and blue and variations of it is just a good way to make money.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I don't disagree.
But we're definitely getting too far off. 2024 is there's a lot of possibilities.
So you think a Unova game is the most likely candidate? You think it's more likely than Johto?
I'll tell you this, I really don't know. I don't know.
I strongly think that Johto is more likely than Unova.
I was in that camp until the Riddler started talking about Unova, and now I honestly, logically, I should revert back to that if I think the Blueberry Academy was like so much of the Unova content, right?
Well, this is it. I think that's it for now, and then... Because also they did do this thing, I think because they love doing this, where they love hinting at stuff.
Yeah.
I believe that the Isle of Armor was a hint for Sinnoh stuff, because you got the Honey Tree and the Single Strike and Rapid Strike and like the Giant Vespiquen and like all these other elements that were very kind of Sinnoh centric.
Yeah.
And then you had the Crown Tundra, which I think was a big old hint for just generally for Scarlet and Violet, with Crowns, the Crown Tundra, rideable legendary Pokemon with Spectra and Lastria, and there were like a lot of other, the past and future with Regieleki and Regidrago. I skim these every time I do it, but I think there's enough connections there. So if that's the case, then Kitakami to me says Johto, go back to Johto, do Johto.
I hope.
And then Unova would be something we get much later down the line, as a result of. What we see. I
think the only reason why I still want Unova is because I think there's so many possibilities, and again, obviously connections to Scarlet and Violet, and mostly the connection between or the storyline, right, of truths, ideals, future, past. I want to see more Paradox Pokemon. I think Unova matches Paldea so much more than Johto does.
I don't think we're going to get any more Paradox Pokemon. Yeah. To be honest, I think that time is done. Don't get me wrong, given enough time, one day we'll get new Paradox Pokemon when the Gen 9 remakes come out. Of course we'll get new Paradox Pokemon then, but I think that concept is now, well and truly wrapped, would be my guess, but I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Especially because it's kind of like at the end of the Indigo Disc, they gave us an answer for what the Paradox Pokemon are, and I think that kind of locks in the idea that chapter has now been told, that story is now done.
Yeah.
There is one other possibility.
Okay.
And I hate this possibility, but it is the case. The Pecharunt thing is the epilogue to the Hidden Treasure of Area Zero DLC.
Yes.
Not to Scarlet and Violet.
How did we not even mention this?
Suggesting the idea that there might be more DLC for Scarlet and Violet.
Which is what I said in the beginning, right? That is where we could maybe then see Johto content, right? right? We went to Kitakami, which is a brand new region, right? Which maybe will be Gen 10. We went to Unova in DLC. What if we get more DLC that takes place in Johto and then takes place in Kanto? And that would actually tie perfectly with this little hint by this Riddler, right? That would tie in perfectly. We have Paldea, Unova, Johto, and Kanto.
Oh, don't. It upsets me because the idea
that
of
would
like
be so
having
much fun.
No, but it's in the Scarlet and Violet engine. So I mean that's the problem for me.
To terms with it.
I haven't. Like to me it's like I'm not PokeTubing right now. It's kind of a big reason why is that I just don't I've fallen out of love with the games. And the idea of having Kanto and Johto put into the world of Scarlet and Violet and put into that engine when there's the possibility that it could have been in the Legends style, like Legends Arceus, would actually just damage my hope, my dreams for this franchise so much. Because I just think the world of Legends is beautiful and wonderful and artistically great. So to me, the idea that they would do that rather than do the Legends thing would hurt a lot. Yeah. But I don't think they're going to do that. I'm hoping, I'm copying, but we'll find out. The viewers will find out within a month and a half of this podcast going live. I'll find out, but I'll be far, far away from YouTube. Well, hopefully just playing it all, like at a healthy pace and enjoying it. I
don't want to be the devil luring you back to the thing that you're trying to escape, but you always have a place here. As soon as that trailer drops, as soon as the Pokemon Day trailer drops,
I'm gonna, for this game in particular, probably do a big job of not doing that, because part of it is that like in the new year I want to have that kind of clean cut and break to discover if this is something I still want to do one day. But what I will say is I'm very grateful that you offered me this opportunity kind of before the new year. Again, we're filming this
that's true. You're not
2024.
This is like eating cake before your diet starts.
In fact, this is like 3 days. But it's not only 3 days before the end of the year, but it's like I've got like my to-do list for the end of the year, and then the last thing on that to-do list is delete the to-do list, which I'm very excited about. So maybe in the far future, but if there is a Legends Johto game, by Jove, for sure, I want to play it and enjoy it as a consumer and not as a YouTuber. So I'm very excited for that, hopefully. But dude, thank you so much for kind of having me on.
Dude, it's always a pleasure. I hope you get some time off and you're able to relax and rest into the new year. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you for sharing the epilogue with me. And I will of course be watching the Hidden Power podcast, and I recommend everyone else does as well. Make sure you're subscribed.
See you guys. A special thank you to our mythical tier channel supporters, Timothy Chu, Trash Panda, Jasco, and of course our Arceus tier channel supporters, Drogain and Bramtastic. This show would not be possible without you guys. If you want to help support the production of this podcast, there's a link in the description to become a YouTube channel member or a Patreon supporter. Love you guys.